Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll start this Bava daf Pei Zayin. We're going to begin on Pei Zayin and Aleph, the second wide line by the new Mishnah. Says the Masnisim, Zeh choimer ba'adam mibashor. In certain ways, we're more strict when it comes to a person that damages than an ox. Sha'adam mishalom nezek sar ripoy sheves uboshes. So, first of all, as our Mishnah in the beginning of this parak said, there's 5 things. So therefore, that's only when a person damages. Also, in the event where he would harm a fetus, he would pay the value of the vlad. V'shor in mishalom el nezek. However, shor that damage only pays the damages. Upatim vladois. And if it would harm an infant, so then you do not pay the dmei vladois. As Rashi quotes from the Gemara previously, anoshim v'lo shvarim. Pasuk says anoshim and not oxen. And then the Mishnah continues. Hamakas av vesimo v'lo asa behen chabura, which we had before. How is that a situation? So he said that umaskana, maybe we're talking about maybe you shaved his beard, right? It may grow back or may not grow back, depending on if you shaved him or you put this type of lotion on. The chaba chavero, you hit your friend biyom kippurim. So chay b'kulon. So you're going to be chayiv in all of them. So even though on Yom Kippur there's a din of being chayiv kares, but we may not necessarily apply kima b'rabminon chayiv krisos. Hachayvel be'eved ivri, if you hit a Jewish slave, chayiv b'kulon, you have to pay for everything chutz min sheves. Since it's your eved, so you're the one that loses out the fact that he can't work. So therefore, you would be the one who would receive the sheves, but that's not if you're the one that did the hitting. So therefore, you wouldn't just simply that wouldn't be counted. The chovel be'eved kanaini. Now, if you hit an eved kanaini, non-Jewish eved, in which of course we also understand if there's also a din of shein v'ayin v'chavdal rashi avarim that he would go free. That depends. Shel acherim chayiv b'kulon. If you hit someone else's eved kanani, you're chayiv completely, because you're chayiv even for sheves, because it's not your eved. And Rabbi Huda Omer ein lo avodim boishas, as we heard him say this before, that when it comes to an eved, you don't pay. There's no din boishas. You don't pay for the boishas. Chereshet v'katan pigiyas and ra. When you encounter a cheresh, a shot or a katan, such an encounter is bad. Why? Because if you hit them, you're going to be chayiv. But if they hit you, they're pater. Ha'eved va'isha pigiyas and ra. Also, when it comes to an eved and a woman, the encounter is bad. So interestingly enough, that this also applies to an eved and to a woman. But you do have to pay after a certain amount of time, which we'll have to understand what that means. Nisgarsha ish, so that, for example, Nisgarsha isha, so this is a married woman, when she's divorced, or nishtachar eved, he becomes free, then chayav l'shalom, then in fact there's a chayav to pay. Says Rashi Shari, midchil hein chayavin. Technically they were chayav for having the damage when a married woman hid, or an eved, ela she'en lehem mal shalim, because even if, let's say, the wife has possession, she has the nichse malug, but the din is she owns the land, but her husband has rights to the peros. So you can't collect the land, because then the husband will be losing his right of being able to consume the peros. But once they're divorced, then she has to pay. On the other hand, the Sefer of the Mishnah says if you do create a chabur on your parents, in which there's a chiyuv misa on that, or b'Shabbos, in which making a being chayv b'chavero is a din of being chayv skila. So pater mekulah and mimnei nida b'nashli, because again this din kima rabina, so therefore you are you're going to be pater from the damages. If you hit your own eved kanaini, you're completely pater, you don't pay him because he's koine. You're koine the Eved Kanani. So therefore you don't pay the Eved Kanani anything. Fine. Says the Gemara. So Bomini Rabbi Lazim Rav. So he asks a question. The Chaybu Babas Katana Shal Cherim Chavolami. If a person would hit a minor girl, someone else's daughter, so who exactly gets the payments? Now Rashi says, "Gedoy levadi didahavya." If you would hit an adult woman, so certainly she's entitled to those damages. But over here we're talking about a katana. So mi amrin and kivan di akni le'rachmana shvach na'ir av. Since we know the father has certain rights, that he's able to get certain benefits of the daughter, because the pasuk Rashi quotes is b'derebe savia kol shvach na'ir avia fil kesef kedushin shlo. He's entitled to everything. Also, if you would be mekadesh a katana or a naira, so then the father is entitled, as we saw at the very beginning of Masechtas Kedushin, to that money, to the kesef kedushin. So since the father has certain rights, monetary rights, so chaval nami davua havi, so maybe the father should also get the money for the damages. My time daha af chasam kaspa, because you have depreciated her value, and therefore, if you wanted to just look at it simply, that he wants to marry her off, so therefore he won't be able to maybe get the same amount of kedushin money, if you will. Odilma shvach narim hu diaknil rachmana. The Torah says, okay, he gets the profit there because the iboy lemimsulo mukashchin matzi maser, because he could always give her over to someone who's a mukashchin, someone who is a repulsive individual with boils, and he would probably pay a lot of money, because the pasuk does say, as Rashi says, is beating the sakli shazeh, which means it's in his hand to be able to give his daughter to whomever he sees fit. And therefore, that's the reason why the Kesef Kedushin should go to him. When it comes to her being hit, he doesn't have the rights to hit. As Rashi says on the next Amud, on Pei Zayin Beis, De'ein adam rishoy lachbol bebito. You're not to hit your daughter. The Yisrael say she's a yid. V'yavar al Yosef al Yosef. You're not allowed to hit your children. There's an isser of al Yosef ben Yosef. Obviously, there's certain times you could al chinuch, whatever. That's beyond the scope. But you can't just start for no reason having your child hit or having someone else hit her. So you're right. The only thing he gets is shvach nairim, therefore he gets the kedushin money, but not the chaval. That money goes to her. Okay. So Esvei. So Gemara is obviously not satisfied with that so quickly. So we pose the following question: if you hit a Jewish slave, so so you have to pay everything chutz min hashavas. If he's your eved, then of course you don't pay for the shevis, because the fact that he's not working, that's on you. So Omar Abaye says that Maida Rav, even though that this is the din, Rav will admit b'sheves that even though we say that by shevis you don't have to pay, he says the masiyodea ad shas bagros diavuhavi. He says that when it comes to sheves, the masiyodea, the work of her hands, is until she's bagaris, it goes to her. Okay, so what exactly is being said over here? So how's this an answer? So Rashi says like this: Min sheves misman sheves shalo. Okay, since it's her handiwork, wishgoil sheves dida, so he should be able to take her sheves. Bikashal Rav Yomer lo zichsa tayru av elva shvach narim bovad. According to Rav, he says you only get shvach narim. But that shouldn't be the case. So the answer is that Rav admits by sheves diavin leil av, that when it comes to the sheves, that's different. It goes to the father. Okay, let's stop there for a second. Question 11. Hachayvel b'vas katana shel cherim v'af chasa b'mikasva im d'mei nezek l'av o l'dida. So it's actually machlokas Rav and Rabbi Yehuda if it goes to the father or la'atzma. Okay. Esvei. Chayvel, probably shouldn't get into the two dots. A chayvel bivnoi gadol, if you hit your older child, yitin lo miyad, bivno, you have to pay him. Bivno katan yaslo segula. If you hit your child, you have to do some segula, which we'll see exactly what that is. Hachayvel bevito katani, you hit your little child, potter, you don't have to pay anything. Even if other people hit her, it has to go to the father. So how can you tell me that the father is only zoichel to shach nairim? So hachinami b'sheves, that only when it comes to sheves that he gets the money, but everything else it goes to the daughter, like hitting. Okay, so again with that it's a machlokas. So if nai gadol yitin lo miyad, you pay him right away. If you hit other people's children, gedolim, if they're older, yitin lehem yad. Katan miyaslam segul. So bavana b'naisim shalo. And here's the point. If you hit your own children, potter. It says explicitly you're potter. So how can you tell me that yitin lo miyad? It's not true. It says you're potter. So amri lo kasha. Kan kishe smuchen al shulchanoi. Kan b'shin smuchen al shulchanoi. It's all totally if this child is dependent or a non-dependent. So if this child is smuchen al shulchanoi, so therefore in that situation you're going to be potter. However, if they're not smuchen al shulchano, therefore they're dependent, then you're chayav to pay. So b'mai kimtel kamaisa b'shen smuchen al shulchanoi. So when do we say that you're chayav to pay? Is when they're no longer dependent on you. Yihachem aseifa. Achayv b'vito hakatana potter. V'od el achem shechabu b'chayav l'litin lavia. So it says that when it comes to hitting a young girl, you're potter. Not only that, el acherim shechabu ba. If other people hit her, chayav l'litin lavia. It has to go to the father. So l'dida boy meisavla the boy mezayni. So he says it should actually go to her because she needs to be sustained. So on this, the Gemara continues. There's an opinion that says that the master could tell his servant, "Asi mi ve'eni zanach." I want you to work and I will not feed you. So that's hani mila be'eved kanaini. You can make this terrible deal with an eved kanaini that you're going to work for me and I'm not going to provide any mizonos. Only by an eved kanaini. The amrulei avid avinta kol yoma. I'm going to work all day. Or at night, zil sachar ve'echol. Go and feed yourself. And you own the eved kanaini. It could actually be backfire because he may not be as effective a worker if that's what you do. But you could do that when it comes to an eved kanaini only. And kol shekain bito. You certainly cannot do this to an Eved Ivri, and certainly not to your daughter. You would need to actually feed her. So you can't make this type of a statement. So our answer is, when we're talking about that, we're talking about the extras, says Rashi. So when it comes to, yes, you have to give her mizonos, but you may not have the chiv of having to give the adafa. So that is what it's talking about. So we're saying the last case where your potter is when they're relying on your table, they're dependent on you. So it doesn't make any sense. Since they're samech on his shulchan, the father should get it. You shouldn't go to the children because they're dependents. So Amri Kika Kapid, when is the father machmid b'mididika chaser? Only things that are some type of loss. B'midid asim alma loy kapid. So the fact that money would be flowing in this unusual way, not in a normal set of circumstances, he doesn't really care. So even though you're samech shulchano, he doesn't care about this money because it's not really a common thing. But one second, if that's the case, Muhammad Siyah, when it comes to finding an object, which you would say the same thing, the alma ka'asiluhu is coming from the outside, but kapid. Nonetheless, we find that the man is makbid. That which the katan finds, it goes to the father as he is makbid. So Amri Rav, so this is how he explained it. you're right. When it comes to a Mitzvah, the father does want that. He is makbid. Why? Because Ravcha de Ka'asiluhum Alma, if you're dealing with benefit that comes from the outside, Vleislu Tsara, and there's no difficulty, Dugufayu Begava Kapid. So like a Mitzvah, it's not that hard to have found it, right? You just pick it up. And therefore, as Rashi quotes the Gemara about Mitzvah, Mitzvah's benil vito hakatanim hari ilu shelo, yokminu lehem gadol v'samach al shulchanu zehu katan. So if you're samach al shulchanu, it goes to the father, right? Why? Because he's makbid when it comes to Mitzvah. Because it's not something which took a whole lot of work for you just to pick up. And therefore, he will be makbid when it comes to that type of a gain. Abel chavala, the fact that this person got hit, the isvut sar, there was pain involved, dugufayu, for that child, alma kaasi lahu will kapid. So therefore the child will get it. So therefore we're making the distinction when it comes to Mitzvah and the case of Chavala. Maybe the only reason why the father gets by the case of Mitzvah is because there was really no skin in the game. It wasn't painful. There was no tsar. And even though it came from the outside, nonetheless the din is that you would go give it to the father. Mashen came by a Chavala, the father's going to say, listen, it came from the outside. I wasn't expecting this terrible thing to happen or for monies to come in. And the reality is that my child was hurt, so I'm going to let them keep the money. And I'm not makbid on that. But this girl, there's tsar in her body. And nonetheless, it does say he's kapid. It says you have to give it to the father. Samri hasam de gavra kapdanahu to ha'ein smuchan al shulchanai. So, why is he not makbid? Because he's not supporting them. Afil b'midi de asiluhum alma kapid. So therefore, in this situation, because he's not semech al shulchanai, when it comes to things that come alma, that he actually will be makbid on. B'hacha the lav gavra kapdanahu, he's not makbid the hasmuchan al shulchanai. So, because he's taking care of his kids, so kikon kapid, he's only makbid b'midi chachasila, b'midi asilim alma kapid. So again, that's a distinction. So when it comes to children who are samech al shulchanai, the fact that you take care of them obviously shows you're kind of giving to them, because they're dependent on you. But nonetheless, for a Mitzvah, the father would say, no, I'm makbid on that. But when it comes to a chavala, because it hurt you, so in that case, maybe I will hold that you get it. Mashin kain, when you are not samech al shulchanai, which means they're independent, which also means, though, the father is not giving to them, so he may be more makbid in that situation, that he'll always say that he wants it. Okay. Even something which is asim alma. Okay. All right. Let's finish this up. My segula. So we said in this statement that if you hit a child, chayvel bevita katana, it says, where was that? It says when it comes to you hit your sons and daughters of other kids. So if they're gedolim, you have to pay them immediately. Katana miyasam segula. So if you hit a child, someone else's child, you have to do segula. So the question is, what does that word mean? So my segula. Rav Chesda Omer Sefer Torah. Shabayim Torah. Rabba Barav Huna Omer Dikla de'achal minei tamri. A tree so they can eat dates from. So as we said, going back, that maybe the father's only zoicha to the shvach narim, or for example, because he could have sold her to a mukashchin, so therefore he's entitled to her kedushin money. Even a bang. So psia saladat, what does that mean? The whole question is referring to a chavol, which is a severe injury, as we continue in Pei Chesed Aleph. The afchasa mikasva, by this severe injury, it caused her this person to be depleted in value, or depreciated in value. Just a bang, there's no monetary loss. That no one would contemplate in that situation. So Rabbi Yosi Bar Chanina, it means shepatza b'faneha, that she was banged in her face, the avchasa mikasva, and therefore it actually was a deduction. So even though it wasn't a serious of a hit, but the fact that it happened on the face, which can cause bruising, and therefore that does cause also depreciation of value. Okay, it's hard to say those words, and we're talking about a person. All right, but we're going to stop there. Let's look at question 12. So when it comes to hitting a young girl, someone else's daughter, so does the Demei Sheves go to that daughter's father, because that money's coming from the outside, or does it go to her? So we said it depends. If this girl is Saimech al Shulchanai, that he always takes care of her, which means he's not so makbid in general, so therefore it'll go to her. However, if she's not Saimech al Shulchanai, which means he kind of is not so generous with her, which means he's more makbid, so kidei mizoneseha dida, so the amount for her mizonos she'll get, and the hadafa, the extra, will go to the father, because the father is going to be makbid on that. Keep moving. TA 15. So if she's saimech on his shulchan, which means she kind of is nice to her. So the question is, who gets it? So he says like this. 15. I got this half right for some reason. Mishalmla, you pay her. Debemidi the asima alma, you pay her. Why? Because since you're not she's samach al shulchanai, doesn't really say why. Doesn't say why. Yeah, umadua. So I got half right. So she does get. Why? Because the bemidi the asima alma the islate sar de gufa lo kapid. So because it comes from the outside, and because this is tsar that was caused to her, so therefore the father will not be makbid in this situation, because it's going to her, and she's not samech al shulchanai. So, again, this is how you read it. The Gemara says, Hacha the lav gaver kapdanahu, the father's not so makbid. Tasmuchan al shulchanai, she can be at the table. Ki kapid, he's only makbid midi the kachasila. However, b'midi the asilahu ma'almo kapid, and in addition to that, also with sar. Okay, so it says of a chaval the ismate tsara. When it comes to a chaval where there's tsar for her, ma'almo asilahu lo kapid, and therefore his daughter will receive it. Okay, that's TA 15. TB 16. So this is what I wrote. It's pretty much the same question. Let's see how I wrote it. TB 16. So I wrote Chad Madir Merimer Sha'av Zayche Rak Lekesef Limsars Bita Umukashchin Vol Chavala El Im Ken HaChavala Haisa Al Paneha Sheish Piches Dameha Avochamandem Omer Shasheves Labas. It's actually not so bad. I really said a lot of good stuff over there, but sometimes you just have to throw out a whole bunch of answers and hope something sticks. Okay, let's look at Rabbi Gibber's test. Nafal Minagag. This is Pei Bava Mebez, it says. Okay, I guess we this was from yesterday's daf. Nafal Minagag Shal Adam. If you fell off a roof, the Ziko Enuchayev be boishes, because you have to have be mischaven. Hamavayish mi shahay yashin. This is yesterday's daf, but I didn't do it. You're embarrassed someone who's sleeping and he died before he woke up. So mahu asvar l'shalom boishes. Why would you have to pay the boishes? Either because you lowered him in the eyes of others, or because of pigam mishpacha. I wrote the family is embarrassed. Hamavayish es acherish. Is Mishalom Boishas. If you're embarrassed about a cherish, you pay Boishas. Hamavayish as a shaita in Mishalom Boishas. Okay. Mahu hachaymer ba'adam Hamazik yosim in a shore hamazik. So Adam is chayiv nezek harot nezek sar sheves riboy boishes mashin kain legabi shore, and the Adam yisham demei v'odais mashin kain legabi shore. Question 5, and I got this wrong. Heim zochsa hatayres nezek abasal av. So does the father get it? And the answer is really to machol, because I said no. Okay. Heim yochel harav leimer levet ivri asimi v'nizanoch. The answer is to an Evan Ivri, no. To an Evan Kanaini, yes. And for some reason I wrote yes, I got it wrong, because it's a machlokus, because it's very hard. That's a very hard answer. But I wrote yes, because that's how it sounds like. But if you read the Gemara says, where is it? V'afil liman di'oimi yochel rav loimer. Right, so it's a machlokus when it comes to Evan Kanaini. Okay. Mal chiluk bein metzias haben kishasamech al shulchan aviv. If he finds something, ubein nezek habolo macherim, as opposed to it coming from others. So what's the difference if they found an object versus nezek? This is what I wrote, and he put a little dot, which means he wasn't so sure if this is good. If the father hit him, he's potter. If he was hit by someone else, you give the mamoin to the child, since it comes from elsewhere, and they were hurt in their bodies. Therefore, the Av isn't makbid. If the father hit, he's potter, since he's makbid on the loss of money. Okay, I just wrote a whole lot of stuff. Okay. Na'im Evan Kanaini Mikiri, can't even read the word, but we'll see it tomorrow's daf. Anyway, Adkan.